Today's guest on Classical Conversations, Robert Kyr, is a creator in so many senses of the word, from a composer to writer and photographer, videographer, even filmmaker. Today, we're going to hone in on his new environmental oratorio called Earth Vigil. That was commissioned and recorded by the choral ensemble Conspirare and their artistic director, Craig Hella Johnson. Robert, thank you so much for calling in for a conversation on Earth Vigil. It's great to have you here.
Thanks so much for inviting me to be on your show.
This oratorio, I saw in your notes that you described it as part opera, part oratorio, coming together to form a new genre altogether. So I was hoping you could share some insight as to the new form that you've fused and just your general vision for the vigil.
Yes, I call Earth Vigil a choral drama, and it's part of a number of pieces that I'm working on in that new genre, which features the chorus actually as a character within the drama itself. But as you alluded to, the piece is a fusion of opera and oratorio. So it has the drama and the plot that we normally would associate with an opera, while also having the expansiveness and the lyricism that we might associate basically with an oratorio. And both of those things are in play and interwoven throughout. It's a series of narratives and then arias that are a reflection on the narratives, and also choruses, which then the whole community, the chorus is singing. So you have two principal characters, Alicia and Tallis. Alicia is a woman who's been living in a mesa canyon for many years and is absolutely in love with the environment that she lives in. And Tallis has read her book. She is a writer, and she is both a poet and a prose writer. And he's fallen in love with the book. So it was a match made in heaven. He calls her and wants her to be part of a film that he's making about the effect of climate change on the lives of individuals living in the wilderness. She immediately says yes, and then it unfolds from there. Eventually, they are threatened by an environmental catastrophe, a wildfire that is bearing down on her canyon in particular. And she doesn't have a car. She's living in the wilderness. Is very happy doing so. But he says, I'm going to come and save you from this. And she says, we don't have the time. I'm going to start to walk toward where you will be coming from. And he says, I can get there within an hour. And so they're coming down the same road toward each other. And in the middle of the piece, part two, that's where you have this incredible drama that's more like opera, where they're trying to find each other amid this wildfire, and they do, but their only means of escape is by going down an incline and into the river and going down the river. But Tallis has this terror of water, and Alicia then has to lead him down an incline into incredible rapids that they must go through in order to escape the wildfire. And they're able to do this. And then the rest of the piece is about their newfound commitment to being the best stewards that they can of the environment in the face of global climate change.
There was only one way to escape. I grabbed his arm.
Seems like something that keeps you at the edge of your seat. And I should mention, too, that this is actually a sequel, and you have an environmental oratorio that came before called A Time for Life. Maybe you could give us a little context on that.
Now, Time for Life was my first environmental oratorio, and it is in three parts: creation, and then the middle part is about forgetting and how we have forgotten our primary connection to nature, and what we must now do in order to reestablish our deep connection and be the best stewards of nature that we can be is in the third part, which is called remembering. So it's creation, forgetting, and remembering. And this whole theme of remembrance and connecting to who we truly are and connecting to the very life force that sustains us through the earth is the focal point of the oratorio. It's not a choral drama in the way that Earth Vigil is. It's purely an oratorio. So it has, again, the alternation of choruses with narrative sections and arias that form the core of the musical expression. So with that piece, it had an amazing journey where it started as a concert work. And then we decided to record it, and it came out as a compact disc. And then during the pandemic, I did 11 wilderness journeys in Oregon, took photography and videography. I'd already had over 12,000 images of New Mexico, where I've been living in Mesa Canyon. And those things together formed the resources for a film that I made during 7 months of the pandemic, which I then made that film to the actual music. So rather than doing what most composers do, is they're given a film and they write music to the film, this was the opposite. I had the piece and it was already recorded, and that's the entire soundtrack. I made the film to that. And that's available through YouTube. It's online. People can see it if they would like. And that's the first step in a journey of environmental oratorios. The second is Earth Vigil, and I'm actually working on my third right now.
Really? And can you give us a little preview of that one?
Yes, well, it's called working title, Earth Canticles. And it's about a celebration of the very life force that sustains us by going through the different aspects of the different kingdoms of nature and the different terrains on the earth, and how those directly affect us, not only in a physical way, but in an emotional way, in a spiritual way, and how that becomes the basis for our healing of the earth when we take that responsibility to be the best stewards of nature, of the earth that we can be.
This is such a wonderful invitation into nature. I was wondering if you could share with us maybe a moment that comes to mind right now, a moment when you felt especially awed by nature.
Well, there's a story that I've often told to people because it's quite different from the experience of many people. I live in the wilderness during 2 to 3 months in the summer in the northwest corner of New Mexico, in a very remote area. It's a 8.5 mile microclimate, exceptional, different from any other that I know. There's a Mesa Canyon on the east side of it and a Mesa Canyon on the west side, and a floodplain that's between the two. And unlike southern Colorado and southern Utah, where the mesas are essentially one expanse of rock, these mesas are highly differentiated by the process of erosion over centuries and centuries, so that each one is its own microclimate, its own wildlife, its own animal life, plant life, its own very specific terrain, which means that this region is a microclimate of microclimates. And within that, I've had a lot of interaction with the animals and with birds and reptiles, and have gotten to know how to a certain extent, communicate with them. One story that comes to mind is I was composing one day in the place where I live. All the windows were shut, and I was at work, and probably I was at work at one of the environmental oratorios. And I had this sense that I was being watched. And there was a window to the left of me and 2 windows joined together to the right of me. And I felt that was coming from that left window. So I stopped playing and I looked, and there was a fox, one of the most reclusive animals in the wilderness. They don't approach human beings. They stay on their own. You rarely see them. There was a fox that had been listening to the music that I was composing because the fox has very highly attuned auditory function, can really hear even through closed windows. And the fox was just there staring. And I looked at it, and we looked into each other's eyes and held our gaze for a long time, a good maybe 8 to 10 minutes. And I didn't move, and we just kept looking. And then I saw the fox tear up, because I realized that it was probably the first time the fox had ever seen a human face, had ever looked into the eyes of a human being. And because I knew that in such an instance where you have the gaze of a wild animal, one thing to do is just hold that gaze and be very calm and peaceful. No fear, no flux of emotions, but just to be with the animal and the animal with you. And it was an incredible communion that we had. It was amazing. I felt so connected to the fox, and through the fox, of course, to nature and all of the experiences that the fox had, as indeed the fox was connected to me through my experience, living in nature, being a composer, and living within the habitat of the fox itself and other animals. But I've had dozens of experiences like that.
Well, those are moments that must just leave you at a loss for words. That's amazing. How about, could you tell us a little bit about the nature of your collaboration with Conspirare? Because you've known them for over a decade at this point, is that right?
Yes, actually, the first time we collaborated was in 2008 on A Time for Life, my first environmental oratorio. And it was during that 2007, 2008 economic downturn. And many choruses were looking for pieces that were for smaller groups, in this case, 8 singers and 3 instruments, which was perfectly made for that particular kind of context. Of course, I had composed it before that, but it happened to fit into what the needs were at that time. And Craig Kelly-Johnson approached me, and I couldn't have been more thrilled. He said, "I want to do A Time for Life." And they gave 2 concerts of it. And that started our collaboration over the many years since. They recorded an entire compact disc of mine called Songs of the Soul. And then now this entire disc, Earth Vigil. And then Craig asked me to do an arrangement of The Lovers by Samuel Barber, which was originally for a 80 or 90 piece orchestra and a huge chorus and 1 soloist, a baritone. He wanted a version for chamber chorus. And he asked me to do that, which was an incredible project and came out on their Samuel Barber CD. I really enjoyed that as well. And I'm also on their Freedom Sings album, piece that I created called Freedom Song. So we've had all these different collaborations and very different pieces each time, which I have enjoyed that journey so much. And Craig is one of my closest collaborators, as is Conspirare. I really feel that I'm part of their community. They've invited me in such a meaningful and caring way, the kind of relationship that a composer lives for with a single collaborator. In this case, Craig Kelly-Johnson, a real choral visionary, and then the whole chorus. It's been an extraordinary and continues to be an extraordinary experience.
What do you hope the audience members might take away from Earth Vigil, either from the concert work or the multimedia iteration that you talked about?
Well, my hope is that music, of course, as a universal language that connects all of us to each other, as the art that is common to every culture that has ever existed on the earth, a human culture, meaning that from the very first human being to who we are now, there's an unbroken line of music making, of singing, of eventually instrumental music. And that connection is deep and connects all of us across the boundaries of culture, across the boundaries of time. It's innate to human life and human experience. So in my view, what could be more appropriate for connecting people to nature? Because music itself emerged out of nature, the nature of who we are and the nature that we lived in. So that connection is very strong. So what I've tried to do is to work with music as a way of connecting people to their deepest connection, not only with music, but to nature itself, in the hopes that establishing and maintaining that connection will inspire them to become the best stewards of nature in their own way, each person, that can be achieved. And I think if that kind of connection could be encouraged, cultivated with people of all cultures, maybe we could have some more forward motion in terms of making policies and going forward. So often people don't have that connection if they live in heavily urban places, or if they just don't have, for whatever reason, they don't feel maybe an initial connection to nature. But if they have a way of being inspired to develop that, to cultivate it within themselves, then one understands why it's our responsibility to be the best stewards of Earth that we can, to collaborate with nature, to help to heal the Earth from whatever we may have done that's not of a positive nature. And in so doing, that ensures our survival as a species, and the survival of all the species and all the different forms of life, when we are collaborators and partners with nature. And music can definitely connect us to that ideal. Whoever does end up listening to it, I'm grateful for your interest in the theme, and also in the music itself. And I sincerely hope that it has a positive effect on your life and is inspiring as a way of connecting to the life force that sustains all of us. And in this particular period of history where we are experiencing such a division, each society, each country and culture within itself, this connection to nature, this focus on the healing of the Earth, can be a way that we could all work together beyond the immediate boundaries of the kind of political strife that we're now experiencing, but to focus on what is right, what we know is true and right, and build on that foundation would be a great way forward. And I hope that whatever I've contributed can be part of that, as well as what other composers are doing and other artists as well.
This has been an introduction to Earth Vigil, an environmental oratorio by multimedia artist Robert Kyr. It's been really great speaking with you, Robert, and I wish you the best moving forward.
Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to be on your show. I really enjoyed talking with you.